Recently, an idea crossed my mind. What if the unique creatures from Subnautica were reimagined as Pokémon cards? So, I decided to bring that idea to life. The first cards I've reimagined are heavily inspired by Eevee and their first generation evolutions. And so starting us off with our first card, the Biter. In its base form, the Biter is quite small and weak, so I've given it 30 HP to represent that. And for its first attack, fittingly, I've given it Bite. But more interestingly, its second attack, Poison Fang, represents its bleeding effect in game quite well. The Biter also has no weaknesses or resistances, and a retreat cost of 1. But that soon will change, as our Biter takes its first evolution and becomes the Sand Shark. I've imagined the Sand Shark to be a grass type with 100 HP, but I prefer to think of grass type as ground type in this scenario. As for his moves, his first move, I've given him Dig. Dig perfectly fits the Sand Shark, as it says the user digs underground on the first turn and attacks on the next. This represents the Sand Shark so well in its ambush tactics. Similarly, the second move I've given him is Thrash, which also fits his in-game actions just as well. And finally, I've imagined his weakness to be Water type. This may seem counterintuitive, but I imagine a Water type would be able to blow his cover away, ruining his ambush tactics. And as for the weakness to Fighting types, I imagine a Fighting type could tank his ambush and then also out-sustain him for the rest of the fight. And now, onto the second evolution of the Biter, the Bone Shark. Similar to the previous evolution, the Sand Shark, the Bone Shark has 100 HP, but is now a Fighting type. And in the fighting spirit, I've given him Headbutt as his first move. Headbutt suits the Bone Shark really well, as that's their main form of attack within the game. And the second move, Iron Defense, also mimics their bony armor, making it a great pick for the second move. Within Pokemon, it's very common to find fighting types weak to psychic types, so I've gone with a weakness to psychic. And the same theory follows with its resistance. You'll generally find fighting types resistant to dark types. Which brings us to our final version of the Biter's evolutions, the Brute Shark. Just as its previous two counterparts had, the Brute Shark will have 100 HP, but will now be a Water type. And the first move of this creature has taken inspiration from its Arctic environment, so I've given it Ice Fang. The second attack from this creature was quite hard to decide, but I ended up settling on Hyper Fang. This is a move where the user attacks with large fangs, which suits the Brute Shark's appearance really well. As for its weakness, the choice was obvious. We have to make our Water type Brute Shark weak to Electric type. And as for resistances, I've gone with Fighting type, because I imagine the Brute Shark's powerful bite force being able to crack through the Fighting type's armor. And so to conclude our Eevee-inspired Subnautica Pokemon, the Brute Shark, just like its evolutionary counterparts, has a retreat cost of 2. Following our Eevees, I'd now like to show how I imagined the Reaper as a Pokemon. The Reaper is a fighting type with 120 HP. Its fighting type mirrors its aggressive nature from within the game. And for its first attack, I've given the Reaper Crushing Grip, where the target is crushed with a great force. This fits his grab attack from the game perfectly, as Reapers are known to crush vehicles with their monstrous strength. And for the second attack, I've gone with Uproar. With this move, no Pokemon can fall asleep for 3 turns, much like how his roars from the distance in-game keep us restless and on edge. The Reaper is weak to Fire type. This is because Sea Dragons are known to defeat Reapers in combat and drag them down into the lava pits. They are resistant to Dark type. This is mostly due to their echolocation, leaving their need for light nearly non-existent. And next up, I'd like to show you how I imagined the Ghost Leviathan Juvenile, and eventually its evolution. Because of its transparent skin, I've given the Ghost Leviathan Colorless type, with a modest HP of 90. The first move for the Ghost Leviathan was easy to decide. I've given it Tackle, which follows its in-game behaviours quite well, just like its second move, Screech, which I've imagined to be a debuff move, which lowers the enemy's defense by 2. Now as for the weakness, I've made him weak to fighting types. This is accurate when compared to Subnautica's lore, as Reapers, which I've imagined to be a fighting type, are known to defeat Ghost Leviathans in combat. And the resistance takes a similar track. I've made it resistant to Dark type. This is fitting because Ghost Leviathans move to the darkness of the void once they've reached maturity, or in this case, once they evolve. The Ghost Leviathan Juvenile becomes the Ghost Leviathan Adult, a darkness type, boasting 180 HP. The attacks the adult ghost ended up with are fairly accurate compared to the in-game ghost. For example, his first move, Shadow Sneak, fits in perfectly with his ambush-like attacks from the darkness of the void. But more interestingly, his second move, Population Bomb, where normally, the user attacks with a barrage of strikes, but here we can imagine it more literally. It becomes a move where the ghost duplicates into 3, and then rushes with a barrage of strikes, almost exactly like how they do in-game. The weakness and resistance also copies its previous evolution, and for the same reasons. And lastly, a massive retreat cost of 4 for this juggernaut of a Pokémon. Next up, I've thought of another interesting evolution line for a fan favourite. We'll start off with the basic form, the Lava Lizard, a fire type with just under 100 HP, and our first attack, Lava Plume, where the user attacks with a burst of fiery lava, very much like how in-game they consume and spit molten rock at their foes. And their second move is Harden. Harden increases the user's defense, demonstrating the molten rock armor found on this creature's back. It is also weak to Metal type. I imagine Metal being able to break through the rock armor and defend against their molten attacks quite easily. And with it being able to utilize rocks to its advantage, it is resistant to Ground type. But now, our Lava Lizard is evolving into the Sea Dragon. Our Sea Dragon is also a fire type, and a large HP pool of 160 proves the size of this gargantuan creature. Our first move is Flamethrower, perfectly suiting the Sea Dragon's long-range fire-spitting attack. But its second attack, I was very happy with, because it follows the Sea Dragon's lore in-game very closely. Giga Impact, a powerful move dealing 150 damage where the user charges at the target with a tremendous force. However, the user cannot move on the next turn. I love this because we know that in-game a Sea Dragon rammed into the metallic precursor research base and after doing so, succumbed to its own injuries. This also explains its weakness to Metal type. The resistance is also decided by the lore of the Sea Dragon though. As we discussed before, we know that Sea Dragons are predators to Reapers, so they are resistant to fighting types. And to conclude our Sea Dragon, a huge retreat cost of 4. Finally, I'd like to share a cross-game evolution line of a more uncommon creature, the Mesma. The Mesma is a very small Psychic-type Pokémon, with only 30 HP. The Psychic type complements its hypnotic powers perfectly though. Its first attack is a simple bite, which it uses after luring in enemies with its hypnotism. Which leads us directly into its second move, Mesmerize, where the user gleams at the target with sinister intent, and causes the target to become confused. Both of these moves match its in-game behaviors very accurately. As for the weakness, I've gone with Lightning. Generally, Psychic-type Pokemon are weak to Lightning type, and a resistance to Fighting type. I imagine them being able to outsmart and confuse Fighting types due to their aggressive style of battling. And now, taking us into the frozen world of Below Zero, our Mesma evolves into the Lily Paddler. Another Psychic type, now with 90 HP due to its modest size increase. The attacks on this Pokemon work in conjunction with one another. The first being Hypnosis, a move that puts the target to sleep, and the second being Dream Eater, a move dealing 100 damage where the user eats the dreams of a sleeping target, restoring half of the damage the target receives. This complements its small HP pool nicely, as it can heal a significant amount of its health when attacking. And just like its base evolution, the Lillipaddler is also weak to lightning types, but is now resistant to ground types due to its environment, as they are commonly found in flora-rich, mossy biomes. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and comment down below if you'd like to see more. Peace out, guys. Have a great one.